Hello, and welcome to your weekly dose of strength. There's a story that I remember as if it happened yesterday. I've been preaching since I was a child, and early on in my life, I was scheduled to preach at a church that was in the backwoods country of South Carolina. And my brother was driving me that night, and we had directions scribbled on a sheet of paper, and unfortunately, he couldn't read his writing, and I couldn't read his writing. The directions were unclear. It was to start about 7:30 that night. It was a winter service, and so during the winter time, it gets darker earlier in the evening. So it was dark. We were in the backwoods of South Carolina, and in that environment, there are trees everywhere and no street signs, and many of the streets didn't have names to them, and it's easy to have a dirt road popping out of nowhere, and it's pitch black. There are no street lights at all. The only thing we could see was from our headlights in the car, and both of us are trying to make sense out of directions we cannot read. We were going where we did not know, had never been, with instructions that we didn't understand. Have you ever been there? Talk about the unknown. Talk about not knowing where you're going, not knowing how you're getting there. For me, that was one night. But for many people, that's their entire life. That's how their life is defined. That's how they live their life. Every day is a day of faith. Every step is a step of faith. When you're going into the unknown, there is nothing more frightening than the unknown. When you have no idea how life is going to end up, you have no idea how this circumstance is going to end up, you have no idea how family is going to end up, you have no idea how your finances is going to end up. You're at a crossroads and you have to make a decision. You can't stay still, you have to move, but you have no idea which way to go. And the instructions, the directions, the best you can do to make sense out of life is unclear. You have no idea if this means turn right or left, if this means take this job or that one, or if this means this city or that city. You have to move, and you do not know where to go. There's a man who was in that very condition, very same situation. His name was Abraham. Abraham was a man whom God called out of nowhere and told him to leave his home, leave his family, leave everything he had become familiar with, and to launch out into an adventure to go where God was calling him, but God did not tell him where. God just said, go. And Abraham obeyed God. How do you do that when you have no idea where you're going? You have no idea what he wants of you. But Abraham obeyed God, packed up everything he had. He and his wife Sarah and the servants in their home, and they started out on a journey that they did not know the destination. That describes so many people's lives. That their life is on a journey and they have no idea the destination. They've started off well, but every step requires faith. They stepped out into nowhere and have to trust God that nowhere leads to somewhere. Many of you live where you live. You work where you work. You've married who you married. You have the children that you have and the family that you have because there was a day and a point in your life when you stepped out into the unknown and you had to trust God even though you did not know how it was going to end up. You see, that's what faith is all about. That's how God operates. That's where God does his best work, is when you and I reach the limit of our knowledge. We reach the extent of our understanding, and we are forced to trust God at every step. At every step, we have to trust him. For every move, for every decision, in every direction, you have to trust God. You talk about learning how to pray. That teaches you how to pray. It teaches you how to utterly depend on God. When you cannot trust your intuition, you cannot trust your prior knowledge, you cannot trust your logic, you're reading instructions that are not clear. And you have to close your eyes and trust him anyway. Here's what the Bible says as a secret to how Abraham did it. It's found in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 11. Verse number 8, this one verse, and here's what it says. The first two words are important and critical if you're going to step out and if you're going to make a decision to go in the direction God's calling you to go, even when you don't know where you're going to end up. These two words are a must. And here they are. Verse 8, by faith. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. He went out by faith. He trusted God by faith. Many of you starting families by faith, taking new jobs by faith. Many of you venturing out into new careers by faith. Many of you taking chances in investments and businesses by faith. Many of you raising your children by faith. Many of you trusting God for every single day's decision that you make by faith. When you trust God by faith, you put the blinders over your eyes, you listen to his voice, and you follow his leading. And you leave the consequences of that decision up to him. And here's what I found. Here's what Abraham teaches. That when you trust God, he makes the end better than the beginning. When you trust God, he makes the destination so much better than the start. When you trust God, he paves the way. He goes before you. He clears the path. He makes the crooked straight. He makes the highs and lows narrow. When you trust God, he guides and he provides. My challenge to you is to not ask God, where are we going? Or are we there yet? Or how will I know when I get there? My challenge to you is to trust God, close your eyes, and take a step. And believe that the steps of a good man and a good woman are ordered by the Lord. Go by faith. Believe him in the unknown. Trust him through every step. God bless. I'll see you next week. I love you.